It is difficult to communicate how unfiltered and sporadic my thoughts are. I can spend what sounds like seconds searching for the correct word to encapsulate what it is I'm trying to say, and by the time I do have forgotten what it is I was about to say, that the word is appropriate for. This is unimaginably difficult when it comes to communicating to people vocally. And one of the reasons that I am so visually focused. I don't think that I am unintelligent. I don't think that, I am a genius by any means. But I think that I have some good ideas among bad ones. But speaking in this way, informally and without any preparation, is a challenge, because I don't always have a clear path, and that's due to attention deficit disorder, that's due to obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. Even when I find a path, I'm just not very confident. It's a self-esteem issue. I don't really know what I want to talk about most of the time. I mostly just know how bad I feel, or how emboldened or self-righteous or whatever it is that I feel. And so I try to take that feeling and try to curve it into some kind of larger point. There are advantages to always being sort of like on the macro level. I find it exceedingly easy to understand large connecting ideas, how one thing ports into another, but I find it exceedingly difficult to remember facts and information that actually make those connections possible. And so I learn about things and I learn that they are accurate, but then I seldom have the ability on the fly to defend those ideas. If, by the way, at any point in this recording I sound salient or I sound consistent, it would only be because I'm medicated. Anytime I'm unmedicated and try to speak about a topic, or anytime I try to perform stream of consciousness, it ends up rambling so far outside of the field of what I was talking about that even if I do have a point, I try to bring it back far too late into the conversation, and it becomes a what moment. So I guess there isn't really a lot to say. The only reason that I'm recording right now is because I really can't afford therapy, and I'm feeling particularly distraught right now. Given the circumstances of the world we find ourselves in, I hate the president, and I hate all of the people who, in the name of ancient, debunked, putrid values regarding the value of human life and the sanctity of capitalism and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and all the grand old party politics that have been dominating the right for so long. I hate all of that shit. Oh, look, there is nothing wrong with looking at a system from an economic perspective and saying, here's what's viable and here's what's not viable in terms of here's what we have enough of to do each of these things, right? But the problem is that we assign importance to something based on our perception of what's going to happen if that thing isn't as, functional due to a lack of resources, and so we tend to pump more resources into it than we think it needs so that it can flourish, right? But that's just not an efficient way to approach things. We need to trim the fat when it comes to military spending. We don't need all of the money that goes into that to go into that, okay? Whatever the cost to taxpayers or to businesses, if we can't change the way that we think about spending money, we are only going to drive society into the ground. It is pointless to have a military state. It is pointless to defend a nation, right, from the terrorists when we're the terrorists. We're the ones that are being radicalized and polarized. There's so much pain and suffering in the world. A lot of it I don't even know about, and I hate myself for being so ignorant. And I hate myself for even thinking that I have a right to even talk about it. I hate myself for pretty much everything. But my hate for myself doesn't even rival the hate that I have for the ideologies that support the murder of young men who don't deserve it, that support the subjugation and oppression of people who have, for perhaps their entire lives, and whose parents for their entire lives have fought. I don't want any of that, and it makes me feel like a dried out corpse. Like every part of my feelings are just stretched across every possible spectrum, and my heart, as cliche as it is, because matters of the heart are never really matters of the heart. They're matters of perspective and intellect combined with a chemical emotional response. But I can't help but feel bad when I see a person in pain, and when I'm told about people who are in pain. And my entire education and my entire life has been nothing but learning about how much pain people are in, both in the private and in the social sense. I've learned, if nothing else, from both of my parents, how much struggle can go into a single life, how much self-doubt, self-hate, lying to oneself, and so much confusion and frustration and anger and rage and all of those things can go into a person's life and completely disable them. make it impossible for them to do even the simplest tasks. And on the public scale, now too, I've learned to migrate that frustration with my own personal life and the personal lives of my personal family and the people that I know to the larger global scale, and realize that we all have these feelings directly, intensely as I feel them, and I know it so much. And that part of me is unable to stop receiving the signal, and I'm scared because I'm not as smart as, the people who are leading the intellectual revolution, and I'm not as quick-witted as the people who can, on the fly, just do whatever it takes to advance the cause. And I find it so difficult to people make it sound like it's just all about having strong convictions, but the truth is that you need to know. And in order to know, you have to research. And in order to research, you have to have the spoons to be able to get out of bed and put your eyes on a book or an article and scan through it. And not just scan through it lazily like I often do, but you have to be able to critically look at things. And I'm expected to believe that that behavior in and of itself will support me. But it won't, and we know that it won't. Because the truth is that the whole game of life is that it is built to hold you back, at least in this country, at least in the system of capitalism. The whole point is that it only wants to bring out the people who are simultaneously capable of dealing with massive amounts of stress, and then also additionally adding to society in some way, as if that's the only path to some kind of truth or some kind of premium human value. But the truth is all that really benefits is the people who don't actually have to deal with the stresses of modern life, who don't actually have to work full-time and work multiple jobs. It only helps people who were born with the ability to do nothing but go to counseling and do research. The entire world is gate-kept by a bunch of stuffy intellectuals. And the rest of us are drowning, and we're just puppets in their game. And that's the whole frustration that I see coming. And I see that coming from everyone. People have different ideas about what causes it. And yeah, I may be smart enough to realize that, the right doesn't have quite the right ideas, only because it's being taken over by Nazis and white supremacists who believe that their intellectual concept of reality is somehow going to benefit the world, and it doesn't make any sense because it involves wiping out whole races of people. It's so reductionist, and it just doesn't make any sense, because it's something that's based in hate and murder, and it's based in something that involves trying to bring some sort of false purity. And it doesn't benefit anyone, because even in the end, if that were to succeed, if that were the concept, then people would only invent new reasons to subdivide and hate the other, because that's what that is all about. There will always be an other, and the other will always be on the margins. There will always be fringe people who are rejected by larger society. But the question is who do we want to be on the fringe? Do we want it to be people who are ultimately not supporting of a globalist system? People who are not in support of a system that we all get along in, that we all don't need to be frustrated constantly because we can't actually find a community. And don't get me wrong, I'm not for a one world government necessarily, or a one world order, or anything of that magnitude. I believe that we should support and preserve cultures and differences. I think that differences make us stronger. That's a practical value that I have and an emotional one. I can make arguments for both. But we need some way to have unity. We need some form of a window into the future, and it is consistently being hindered by these people who have no desire in their heart for the success of humanity. A lot of people who are convinced that this life isn't even true life. A lot of people who are convinced that there's a better place that they are taking people to when they kill them, or believe that they are condemning people to when they murder them. But it's just not good enough. It's not good enough. The promise of some unknown land, and it's completely unreasonable and makes absolutely no sense that you would need to destroy the facets of this world, to destroy the beauty of this world, so that you can feel before you die and actually recede into nothingness that you've done something actually good. But you know it's not good, because there can be no good when it comes to taking the lives of other human beings. And you know what? That does extend to even the systemic problems that you support. You are directly responsible. We are directly responsible for systemic injustice that causes the deaths of people who cannot defend themselves. And to pretend otherwise is just hiding the truth for convenience sake. And it's a sickening truth. All I can feel anymore is pain. Rage crops up in moments, and then tears. And it's this constant chaotic fluctuation of sadness, pain, anger, sadness, pain, anger. And I truly believe that I will live my entire life that way so long as this world continues to exist in the way that it does. But I'm not gonna say I don't know what to do, because fucking I do. I know what needs to be done. So all I can do is my part, because it's not something one person can do. And I'm not charismatic, and I am not good at convincing people, and I am not good at bringing people to my side. And all I can think to do is just submit myself to someone's values who are more put together and more well constructed, and say, okay, you've convinced me. I believe in you, so now believe in me. Give me a direction and I'll take it. But so often I'm met with resistance to that idea, because so much about being a progressive in this world is knowing your own direction, knowing where to take yourself. And I've never been given the mental or cognitive ability. I've never been given the space to consider that. Not really. I've never been given the security. I've always had to render my ideology in the depths of hell. Just cobbling together what pieces of information I can make sense of in between times where I'm just feeling so exhaustingly tired that I can barely move, that my entire body aches because of the manual labor job that I have to do, because of the demand on me that isn't even paid in full, because of the expectation of people that I have some type of pre-rendered values that have just been instilled in me by my parents, when in reality my parents were as chaotic minded as I am and had absolutely no values to instill in me in a consistent way. I don't believe anything except those things that I have been able to construct for myself. And when I say that I'm willing to believe someone, they should take it very seriously, because I am not easily convinced. I'm not easily changed or moved. But I can move and I can be changed. And that's the biggest difference between me and someone who is destructive to the field, to the discursive field. Oh God, it sounds so... Someone who is so destructive to the place where we all meet and can have a meaningful discussion where all of society comes together and voices what their truth is. And together we determine, based on those truths, what is evident and what should be protected. But I just don't know that I'm doing enough or that I'm doing anything at all. I am disabled, and I want to do more. But I also feel weak and unsure. Most of my days I felt like I just want to be taken out of this world, or be given a new body, or be given a new mind, so that I can actually make something of all this knowledge that I've acquired that makes me just so pissed off and angry. Oh God, that I could do something with this intense emotion. But every time that I've acted out on it, it's always been in vain, or it's been misplaced, or potentially damaging, and so I have to control it. I mean, I have to be smart about how I apply it, or else I'm only going to end up hurting the people, these exact people that I want to protect, and I can't handle doing that either. I can't... It's the worst form of analysis paralysis. I mean, it's just... It's so complicated, and I'm so broken, and I truly believe that, and that's a large part of the problem. And I would love to be able to see a counselor again, to be able to talk to somebody who could help me work through my issues, to actually give me some confidence. But then I always think I'm afraid of that situation, because what does me with confidence look like? Does it look like someone who is just willing to bulldoze people over? How much of my insecurity is just what it ought to be? How much of my uncertainty is just exactly how uncertain someone who is dealing with very large and very important issues should be? So, at the same time that I feel like it's completely wrong to say I'll act as a tool as I'm trying to advocate for the people who can't or don't have the power to advocate for themselves, as wrong as I might feel that is, because of this notion that if you don't know where you're going, then how do you know you're being used? I also know that I don't necessarily have the appropriate tools to know where I'm going, and if I did, how much of my time would be spent being so confident in that I'm completely ignoring the other side of the story, and I may be missing something completely important. I mean, society is filled with examples of people who are just shouting at the top of their lungs what they believe at each other. People believe they know the difference between right and wrong. And that shit scares the fuck out of me. Because I could see myself as someone who does think about what may be right or wrong. And maybe has made a decision. Because the truth is, the only thing that I'm certain of is that all human life should be valued, that people should be not only free, but valued, that everyone deserves love, that everyone deserves a chance to make the best of themselves and learn, that everyone deserves to approach the most complex questions in life and face them with a belly that's full and a heart that's wide open, and eyes that are unencumbered by smog and deceit and tears. Everyone deserves to have an opportunity to look up at the stars and just be amazed by that. Be amazed by the universe, to love being alive, and yet so much of the entire world not only doesn't have the opportunity, but scarcely has had the time to even think about wishing for that opportunity. Don't even know for what reason, for what purpose do we hold each other back, for what purpose do we condemn each other to this hell on earth? What is the end game? What is the goal? What is the purpose of any of that? I am only as free as my brother. I am only as free as everyone else. And I know that's true. I can't take freedom. I can only give freedom. I can only release my own expectations and my own harbored frustrations